Hello world, Krista here with Books and Jams, and today I'm going to be doing the 2016 Bookish survey. I don't know the exact words for it or the title of it, but I saw a number of people on BookTube do this survey, and I thought it was a great way of talking about all the things that I read in the year, this past year. And also I learned that it came from Jamie at The Broken the Bookish, which is a blog, a book blog, and she hosted the Broken the Bookish Secret Santa that I participated in this year, which was a lot of fun. So I will link all of the info to this. I guess it's a tag, or it's more of a survey than a tag, but similar to a tag. There are a huge amount of questions on here. I'm going to go ahead and tell you all about the things that I read in 2016. I think this is a nice way to kind of wrap up the year. First couple things are some stats for the year, and the number of books that I read is 95. And 10 of those were rereads. And I count them anyways because it's still time that I spent in 2016 reading. Then we have about 30 book questions for me to answer. The first question is the best book that I read in 2016. And I'm not going to answer with only one because in a few days I will post my best and worst of 2016 video. So these are just a few of the ones that I really loved. So among my top three are The Light Between Oceans by M.L. Stedman, A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. There are some gorgeous illustrations that I really like along the way. So yeah, get this edition if you're able to. This is a fantastic, fantastic book. And thirdly, I really liked The Nightingale, which I don't have a cover for, but this is The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. You've heard me talk about this before. It's a World War II historical fiction set in France about two sisters. So there you have it. Those are three of my favorite. The next question is a book that I was excited about and thought that I would love, but I didn't. And for that, I chose Eligible by Curtis Sittenfeld. This is my first book of the month box, subscription box choice. This is a Pride and Prejudice retelling set in Ohio, more current, modern day. And I thought I would love it because I love Austen retellings and adaptations and inspired and fan fiction and all that. But it kind of fell flat for me. I didn't really care for the characters. It was too modernized, and the charm and joy that I get when I read Pride and Prejudice did not happen at all with Eligible. So it was not good for me. The next one is a surprising book that maybe you thought you weren't going to like, but you liked it. So it surprised you in a good way. And for that, I'm choosing Cinder by Marissa Meyer. This is the first in the Lunar Chronicles series. And I passed by this book multiple times in Barnes & Noble and other bookstores. And I saw the gears or the android features inside. And I heard that it was an android science fiction-ish retelling of fairy tales. And I was not at all interested, but I heard so many people talk about how much they loved it that I picked it up and flew through it. I think I read this one in January. Actually, in January and February of 2016, I read through the entire Lunar Chronicles series. So, except for the short stories and the novella, not Fairest and Stars Above, I waited for later for them. But the 4 books in the series, I flew through in January and February and really loved them. A book that I pushed a lot of people to read or encouraged a lot of people to read or recommended to a lot of people, and they did, would be, again, The Nightingale. It's hard to show this one because I don't have the cover, but The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. I recommended that to so many people this year. Next 3 questions are all about series, and so I will go through them very quick. The first one is the best series that I started in 2016, and I will say The Lunar Chronicles for that. The best sequel of 2016, and I'm going to say A Torch Against the Night, which is the sequel to An Ember in the Ashes. And the best series ender, I will say Winter from the Lunar Chronicles. It's a chunker of a book, but it's so good. And I loved the way that everything wrapped up. The next question is about the favorite new author that you found in 2016. And I read a lot of new authors in 2016 that I have not read before. So three of my top authors would be Kristen Hanna, again, from The Nightingale, Marissa Meyer from the Lunar Chronicles, and also Ruta Sepetys, who wrote Between Shades of Grey. She wrote 3 books, and I read all of them this year. Loved those books. The next question is the best book from a genre that you don't really read or don't typically read or that's out of your comfort zone. And I read my first graphic novel this year, and that was Nimona by Noelle Stevenson, and I really enjoyed that story. It's quirky and cute, and I really enjoyed that. The next question is the most action-packed or thrilling book that you read this year. or unputdownable book, and for that I'm going to say Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom. I read them pretty recently and I absolutely loved them, and I flew through them and I could not put them down. Borrowed both from the library and they were fantastic. A book that you read in 2016 that you will probably reread in the next year, and for that I'm going to say Ink and Bone by Rachel CAINE. This was my first book of 2017, and I believe it's going to be a series, or already is, more than one. So I would like to reread this book along with any others that follow in the series. Favorite covers of the year, I would say Ink and Bone again is a beautiful cover. Uprooted by Naomi Novik is a beautiful cover. And The Night Circus, I love the covers of this. And there are multiple covers, but I really think all of them are quite beautiful. Most memorable character that you read about in 2016, and for sure I'm going to say Irena Sendler. She's not a fictional character, she's a real life character, but I read Life in a Jar in November. Irena Sendler helped to rescue Jewish children from the Warsaw Ghetto in World War II, and her story is just deeply moving and unforgettable to me, and I wish more people knew about her. The most beautifully written book that I read in 2016 would probably go to The Night Circus. Even though at the beginning I was pretty confused by the timeline of the story because it kept jumping around and I was a little bit confused by it, eventually I got really into it, and the atmosphere and the way that things are described, that the circus is described, is just absolutely beautiful and captivating, and definitely a highlight of this book. The most thought-provoking or life-changing book, I don't know that I read anything that was ultimately life-changing, but I definitely think The Light Between Oceans was pretty thought-provoking for me, just in the dilemma that this couple experiences of what should be the right thing to do, and even with their differing opinions, it made me really think, well, what is the right thing in this situation, and yet also think about how there's more than one answer to that question, and it was really interesting to read and think about. A book that I can't believe I waited until 2016 to read. I guess for this, as I looked through my list, I couldn't think of anything specific, but I'm going to say I Am the Messenger by Marcus Zusak. I don't even know when this book came out, but I read The Book Thief many years ago and really loved it. And usually when I like an author, I read some of their other books right away, but I didn't read anything else by him right away. But I did read I Am the Messenger this year, and I enjoyed it. It's so completely different from The Book Thief, but I also liked it in a different way than I liked The Book Thief, but I did enjoy reading I Am the Messenger. The next question is a favorite passage or quote from a book that you read in 2016, and I can't answer this because I haven't written down any quotes, and I don't remember quotes very well from books, so I don't have an answer for that one. But I am going to start a quote journal in 2017, so hopefully if this question comes up again next year, I will have a better answer. The shortest book that I read was Night by Elie Wiesel, and it's a nonfiction World War II kind of memoir, I guess you would say. And it was 120 pages. And the longest book that I read was Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, which was 870 pages. Even though I listened to it on audio, it was still the longest book that I completed this year. A book that shocked me the most, whether because of a plot twist or character development or the ending or in some way shocked me. And for that, I'm going to say A Torch Against the Night. I remember driving to my friend's house and listening to it on audiobook, and a twist happened and I showed up at her house completely jaw on the floor. I had to talk about it for the next 10 minutes. She had no clue what I was talking about, but I was like just completely floored. It took me by surprise completely, and I loved that about it. OTP of the year, I don't remember romance books, whether in contemporary or other books. I enjoy reading about relationships and couples, but nothing that stands out like, oh, I hope this couple lasts forever. I just don't connect in that way with books, so I don't have an answer for that one either. Favorite non-romantic relationship of the year, and I'm going to choose the crew from Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, the 6 characters and the friendship and bonds that they develop, particularly Kaz and Inej. I love them. The way that you see that they trust each other and yet don't trust anybody, but they've built up trust and confidence in each other, and that he can recognize when she's there, even though she's like totally silent and can sneak up on everyone else. I love their relationship. It's almost like he's almost brother sister, but not at all. I don't know how to describe it, but I particularly love their relationship and how that was developed over those 2 books. Favorite book that I read in 2016 from an author that I'd read previously. And again, almost everything that I read this year was from a new author. I did read The Siren by KIERA, who I also had read the Selection series from her. And while I guess it was my favorite from an author that I read before, but I didn't love The Siren either. The best book that I read this year in 2016 that was recommended to me from someone else, and I pretty much can say almost everything on my list was recommended to me by people on BookTube, because I started watching BookTube about 6 to 8 months before I ever joined, which was in about May, I guess. So I read almost everything that I picked up was highlighted to me because of people on BookTube. So that's really kind of fun. And yet also I'm realizing I miss just going into a library and picking up random things that I've never heard about before. So I'm going to start doing that a little bit more in 2017. But I do appreciate all of the recommendations that I've received from BookTube because I found some fantastic books. Again, I don't have an answer for this one, which is the newest fictional crush from the year. I don't get crushes on fictional characters, so I don't have one. Best 2016 debut that I read this year would be Unblemished from Sarah Ella. This is about a girl who lives in New York, but then it's a fantasy as well, so there are other reflections, I guess, which is New York, but in a different realm. So she travels to a different reflection and has to fight the evil that's there. I enjoyed this immensely, and I'm looking forward to the sequel that's coming out in just a few months. Oh, and if you don't know, Sarah Ella is one of our very own in this community. She's another booktuber, so if you haven't checked out her channel, I would definitely recommend doing that. The best world building and setting development is for sure The Night Circus. Again, I've talked about the beautiful writing that's in here, and I loved the setting and the atmosphere that is developed in this circus. You can picture the different tents that get talked about, the smells, the sights, all of it was just fantastic, and I loved it. So it's not a complete world that necessarily like in a fantasy book, but I do love the setting that is developed in The Night Circus. It's beautiful. A book that put a smile on my face. I think I talked about this in my wrap up the month that I read it, but for sure, Anne of Green Gables puts the biggest smile on my face when I read it. And I've already started the next one, Anne of Avonlea, for this year, and it puts a smile on my face too. I barely can read 2 sentences without having just a big smile because I love the characters, I love these books, and this makes me smile. A book that made me cry or nearly cry, and I could go on. I cry a lot in books, and I love that about them. Long Way Gone also made me cry. Life in a Jar also made me cry. Salt of the Sea also made me cry. Night by Elie Wiesel also made me cry. My goodness, lots of books made me cry this year. A hidden gem of the year, I would say for sure, is Blackmore and Edenbrook by Julianne Donaldson. I found out about Blackmore from Reagan at Prue's Project, and she described it, and I fell in love immediately. It sort of has a Jane Austen feel. They're set in Victorian era, just romances with a little bit of depth to them, and I really loved them, both of them, Edenbrook and Blackmore. They're not the same, but they're beautifully written, and I would call them hidden gems for sure. A book that crushed your soul, I just showed you them, but for sure my top 3 were A Monster Calls, A Nightingale, and The Light Between Oceans. I put the book down sobbing multiple times. The most unique book that I read in 2016, I would say, is Wolf by Wolf by Ryan Groudon. This is an alternate history book, which you've probably heard about, but it's where the Nazis win World War II instead of the way history happened. So it just was super intriguing concept, and I loved it. The last question is a book that made you mad in 2016. And at first I thought, oh, I don't have any books that really made me angry. But then I remembered that I recently finished The Order of the Phoenix from Harry Potter, and Umbridge makes me furious. I could not stand her. Every single time I heard her voice on the narration, my blood would just boil, and the way she treated Harry. And Snape, in all the Harry Potter books, Snape makes me angry. And I know people say in book 7, my opinion might change, but it has not changed yet. And I am into this book 7. I'm about a third of the way through, and I still can't stand Snape. Ugh! So yes, those 2 characters really make me angry. That is it for this bookish survey for 2016 books that I read. I read a lot that were just kind of meh this year, so some of my answers may seem a little bit repetitive, but the ones that I loved, I really loved. I would love to hear in the comments if you have a book this year that really made you feel something. Maybe it made you laugh really hard, or really made you angry, or really made you cry. I would love to hear that down in the comments. So go ahead and chat with me down there. Give me a big thumbs up if you liked this video, and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will be talking to you very soon. Bye!